Mr. Tobin, thank you very much for the live report. Now let's go down to Stuart, Florida, and bring in Dan Bongino, the host of Unfiltered. Dan, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Ainsley, how are you?
You got to admire the people of Mariupol. I mean, you know, Russia said, we'll give you till 5 o'clock in the morning to come out with the white flag and surrender, or we're going to kill all of you. And they said, nope, drop dead.
Yeah, they gave him the double-barreled middle finger there. Listen, it's what I've been saying for 3 weeks on the show now. There's a significant difference between taking territory and occupying territory, guys. It's not the same thing. We've seen this, you know, throughout. I mean, Russia, the Soviet Union, guys, the former Soviet Union, has experience with this. They steamrolled into Afghanistan, had really very little resistance whatsoever when you go back and read the history on it. But look what happened. It turned into a suicide mission as the years piled up and the losses accumulated as they tried to occupy the same territory they took, with air quotes. Now you have a more organized population with a kind of a better sense of a cohesive national identity. And you think you're just going to walk into their towns and say, and cities and say, hey, look, you know, we're here. Everybody, you know, genuflect and get down on a knee. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's not just me. I'm not claiming to be some you know, a future teller here. Anybody who's had any experience in national security or military tactics, guys, said the same thing. Occupying the place and taking it are two entirely different things. And Putin's finding that out now the hard way.
Can't do either. He's not doing either. He's not occupying. He's not taking the place, and he's not occupying the place. He's got one town, and there's actually people in the streets people in the streets protesting their existence, screaming at these soldiers as they just get out of my house. So we'll see where this goes. Let me ask you, Dan, if you're Zelensky, he's pushing for talks now. Do you think time is on his side, that if Russia could be bled out here, he can get them entirely out of his country? Or does he see the death and destruction and think, I have to stop it here and risk losing a portion of his country?
You know, Brian, I got some bad news on this front. There are really no good options. There are only a series of less bad, malicious options now. I mean, going forward, what happens? Let's say there's a peace agreement tomorrow. He gives up certain portions of eastern Ukraine and even portions of southern Ukraine. Say that happens, right, Zelensky? I mean, how long is it before Putin, or a potential replacement for Putin, does the same thing again when they get in political trouble in Russia and engages in another attack in Ukraine? I mean, they're literally next-door neighbors.
I think that if he could do this again, he wouldn't do this.
No, I don't know, Brian. We said the same thing after the you know, Soviet incursion into Afghanistan. Man, maybe they learned their lesson there, and that didn't happen. So my point, I mean,
they
seriously.
changed leaders.
So my point is,
they dissolved afterwards.
Yeah, and then they're back in Ukraine. Exactly what I just said. You got another leader, same problem. So here's my issue. So what's your other option? Your only other option would be to either do some kind of a soft defense agreement like we tried in 1994 when they gave up their nukes. That didn't work. Or to admit them into NATO, and then you potentially have a severe escalation where the Russians feel like they have to go to war. I'm not here to deliver good news and be a phony. I don't think there are any good options at this point. There's only temporary bad options.
So, Dan, let's talk about Hunter Biden, because the New York Times, you know the story, has recently put out a story saying that they did authenticate his laptop. It was his laptop. GOP's talking about possibly probing him or probing this after the midterms. Does that happen? And why aren't Democrats talking about this? Other media outlets aren't talking about it. There was a recent survey that said the majority of Democrats don't even know about this story.
Well, there's a reason they want this Hunter Biden laptop story to go away, and it's not the obvious one. Well, it would reflect poorly on Hunter Biden. Listen, the media doesn't care about Hunter Biden. They care about protecting Democrats. Let's just get that straight, okay? They'd throw Hunter Biden overboard tomorrow if they thought it would save Joe Biden. The reason they need this laptop story to go away is because Ukraine has been a piggy bank for swamp rats on both sides of the political aisle for decades. If you were pro-Russia or pro-European in Ukraine, you could make a fortune and make American lobbyists and former politicians and swamp rats a fortune by lobbying Congress for either side, okay? Everybody knows that. Hunter Biden and his job over there was symptomatic of a larger swamp problem. And in order to make that problem go away, they were afraid when Donald Trump got in office that he was going to look into this, which he did. That was the whole essence of the impeachment thing, saying, hey, what's going on over there? And they said it was a quid pro quo. They wanted Trump gone. And you think it's a coincidence, guys, that the exact same people, the same group of people who were involved in the collusion hoax, who had meetings at the White House with the whistleblower in the Ukraine hoax, were the same people involved in the impeachment hoax? They had to make Donald Trump go away. They didn't want him looking into the Ukrainian piggy bank at all. So when the collusion hoax didn't work, they moved on to step 2, the impeachment hoax. It's the same people. I'm going to cover it in detail using left-wing political reports on my podcast today. It's irrefutable. Yeah. It's not a conspiracy theory. They actually had meetings at the White House afterwards with the same group of people. That's why they need the laptop to go away, because it's symptomatic of a larger problem. Swamp rats making money in Ukraine for either side.
Well, it is curious that after 17 months of radio silence, the New York Times suddenly, out of nowhere, suddenly addresses it to fix their history with the story.
Well, there's a reason for that, Steve. There's either one of two explanations here. Either Hunter Biden is about to get indicted and they're trying to massage the story early on, or the New York Times has decided Joe Biden, the polling is just too bad, that they need to send a signal with a wink and a nod. He needs to go away before the next election.
100%.
We need a different candidate.
You know what? We said the same thing on Friday, because it's like, why did they suddenly snap out of the hibernation? Right. Meanwhile, we want to go out to Colorado real quick. If you've got kids in Cherry Creek School District, when they graduate, they will never be the valedictorian if they work forever and get really good grades, and they're going to do away as well with class rank.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, we were saying earlier, we're old school. I never was jealous of the valedictorian. I used to think, you know, God gave that person gifts. Wonderful. Praise that person. And I couldn't wait to see which school that he or she was
When I was valedictorian, I got a lot of resentment, but it didn't stop me from
Brian,
being
but I didn't
number one.
want to embarrass him.
Thank you very much. So
well, listen,
it's going away. How do you feel about that?
Well, this is, I know this kind of like, we kind of laugh at the stupidity of all this leftist nonsense all the time, but there's a hard reality here that should be really disturbing to the audience. This is symptomatic of a larger problem on the left. Meritocracy is not their thing. They believe in this radical egalitarianism where everybody should be equal. But you have to think about this, guys, right? To treat everybody equally using things like this, getting rid of merit and valedictorians and other things, right? To treat everybody equally, you have to treat everyone unequally, right? I mean, if Brian works harder than Ainsley and Steve, not suggesting that happens, and then Brian doesn't reap the rewards, then Brian's being treated unequally. That goes for me, too. Yeah. That goes for the valedictorian who worked really hard to get those grades and is now being treated like everyone else.
Brian does have 3 shows on Fox. Are you saying he should make more than we do?
The only reason I said that, I've never seen a guy work like that in my life. This guy's got like 25 shows, and then he hosts for Ingram on Friday night. Right. I'm like, holy Moses, this guy go to sleep?
This is not the talking point we're supposed to be having. But
well, like, it's a meritocracy.
But the point is, Brian, they will not make you the Fox News valedictorian.
Right, absolutely.
No matter what. That's a good point, Steve. There's no chance. Yeah, but that's egalitarianism. That's what they want. And to treat everybody equally, you have to treat them unequally, because people who work harder get less rewards than people who don't work as hard and then get the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Right. We like to keep score in this country, even if we lose.
Yes.
Even if you lose, because you learn and you move on. How do you know how you're doing if there's no way to keep score? And your class rank, I always thought, was a fundamental way to keep score. It just levels everything out depending on how hard your school is.
I'm serious. I'm not kidding when I tell you this. I've learned more from the losses, whether in politics. I tried to get into medical school. I didn't. I went on to business school later. I've learned more from the things I've not succeeded at than the things I have. I absolutely mean that. The most valuable lessons are in the losses, not always the wins.
With me in particular, I've never failed, so I don't know really what you mean exactly, but I've read about other people.
I know. It's true. It's why I look up to you so much.
Thank you.
It's so clear.
Yeah, so sarcastic.
Dan Bongino, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
See you guys.